There are moments in life when Jesus will remove people you thought you could never live without. It will feel confusing. It will feel painful. It may even feel like betrayal. But what if the separation is not a loss? What if it's protection? What if Jesus is clearing the path ahead because he heard conversations you didn't? He saw actions you never knew about. And he understood hearts that were never meant to stay? There comes a time in every person's life, especially when we have lived long enough to watch seasons change and people shift like passing winds. When we sit alone in a quiet room and ask questions we never imagined we would ask. We look around at the empty spaces once filled with laughter, conversations, companionship, and warmth, and suddenly realize that the people we once depended on, the people we once believed would be with us forever, are no longer there. Maybe they left slowly, drifting away like a fading echo. Maybe they walked out suddenly, without warning, without closure, without explanation. Maybe they changed, choosing a different path, a different life, a different version of themselves. And in the silence that follows, the human heart breaks in places we thought were unbreakable. And in that painful silence, we whisper the question, why would Jesus remove someone I believed I needed? Why would he allow a friendship to end, a relationship to break, a family bond to fracture, a connection we cherished to dissolve? Why would he let someone who meant so much to our lives disappear without giving us the answers we crave? Why does he take away people we prayed for, stood beside, sacrificed for, fought for, and loved deeply? The question lingers in our hearts like a trembling voice. If I needed them, why did Jesus allow them to leave? Many people, especially in the later years of life, know this pain too well. Because as we grow old, life has a way of revealing truths we once refused to see. Friends we thought were permanent become strangers. Family members become distant. Children grow and build lives far away. People we trusted betray us. People we supported forget us. People we believed would walk with us to the end stop walking beside us altogether. And when that separation happens, it tears at the deepest layers of the soul. Sometimes the pain is so heavy that it makes us question our worth. We ask ourselves if we were not good enough, if we failed somehow, if we should have fought harder, if we were too soft, too trusting, too loyal. We replay memories over and over, trying to figure out where everything changed. We blame ourselves for things we could not control. And in the silence of sleepless nights, we cry for what was lost and what we do not understand. But what most human hearts do not see is that Jesus removes people not to hurt us, but to protect us, to guide us, to heal us, and to strengthen us. He sees what we cannot see. He hears conversations we never heard. He watches actions done behind closed doors. He knows the deepest intentions of every heart involved. And he knows when a relationship has reached its purpose, when a season is complete, and when a connection is blocking what he is trying to build in our lives. Sometimes Jesus removes people because he knows they would break us in the future in ways we are not prepared for. Sometimes he ends a relationship to prevent a betrayal, a heartbreak, a disaster that would have destroyed the very spirit inside us. Sometimes he takes people out of our lives because they were quietly harming us emotionally, spiritually, mentally without us even realizing it. And while we cry over the separation, heaven celebrates because danger has just been removed from our path. Other times, Jesus removes people because they were holding us back from growth. Some people were comfortable seeing us small, limited, dependent, or quiet. They supported us as long as we stayed beneath them. They celebrated us as long as our blessings didn't outshine theirs. They clapped only until our success threatened their ego. And Jesus, loving us far too much to let our growth suffocate in the wrong environment, removes them so he can release us to rise higher. There are people who cannot go where Jesus is taking you next. There are individuals who are part of your past, but cannot be part of your future. And Jesus knows exactly who will fail you when pressure increases, who will resent you when blessings come, and who will abandon you when life becomes difficult. So he removes them early, before their presence damages your destiny. Sometimes Jesus removes people because we begin to depend on them more than we depend on him. We turn to them for comfort before we turn to prayer. We seek their approval more than God's. We build our security around them instead of building our foundation on faith. And Jesus, in his loving mercy, gently takes away the thing we cling to more tightly than him, not to punish us, but to remind us of where true strength comes from. For some, that removal feels like the deepest betrayal. It feels like abandonment. It feels like the ground collapsing beneath your feet. Because when someone has held your hand through storms, when they stood beside you in the hardest moments, when they shared pieces of your life no one else could understand, losing them feels like losing a part of yourself. It feels like losing your breath. It feels like losing your anchor in the middle of a raging sea. But there is something sacred hidden beneath that pain. Jesus removes people when their assignment in your story is complete. Some people are lessons, not lifetimes. Some are chapters, not whole books. Some are bridges, not destinations. They were sent to teach you something, to grow you, to strengthen you, to prepare you, to carry you through a season. And while we want every relationship to last forever, Jesus never promised that every person in our lives would stay forever. He promised he would. And that is the truth we often forget. We mourn what left because we do not yet see what is coming. Sometimes Jesus removes people because we prayed for something greater, and their presence was blocking it. We asked for peace, but they brought chaos. We asked for healing, but they kept opening old wounds. We asked for strength, but they weakened us. We asked for blessings, but their energy repelled blessing. We asked for joy, but they drained every bit of it from our spirit. And Jesus, hearing our prayer louder than our attachment, stepped in and removed what was standing in the way. Sometimes Jesus removes people because staying connected to them would have cost us our purpose. There are dreams we would never chase if they were still here. There are callings we would never answer if they were still influencing us. There is healing we would never pursue if we still relied on them to carry us emotionally. Jesus knew that losing them would hurt, but he also knew it would force us to grow. And yes, sometimes Jesus removes people because they chose a path away from him. They chose bitterness over love, pride over humility, darkness over light, selfishness over compassion. And out of his love for us, Jesus shields us from becoming collateral damage in someone else's decline. It may not feel like protection right now. It may feel like abandonment. It may feel like punishment. But Jesus does not remove people to leave you empty. He removes them to make space. Space for healing, space for peace, space for growth, space for purpose, space for people who will love you the way you deserve to be loved, space for blessings bigger than the loss you're crying about today. There will come a day, maybe months from now, maybe years from now, when you will look back and say, if they had stayed, I would not be standing where I am today. You will realize that what you thought was the end was actually the beginning. What felt like a breakup was actually a breakthrough. What felt like rejection was actually divine redirection. Jesus does not remove people to hurt you. He removes them to prepare you. He removes them to protect you. He removes them to position you. He removes them to elevate you. And when he closes a door, he never closes it to leave you outside. He closes it because he has already built a better one. So if someone has recently walked out of your life, whether a friend, a spouse, a child, a relative, or someone you trusted dearly, please hear this with your heart. Jesus did not take them away to destroy you. He removed them because their chapter was over. And your next chapter cannot begin until they are gone. And though you may feel alone right now, you are not abandoned. You are being rebuilt. You are being guided. You are being shaped. You are being strengthened. You are being prepared for something greater than what you lost. This is not the end of your story. This is the doorway to the next season. When someone leaves your life in a way you didn't expect, the first stage is shock, the numbness that settles into the soul when reality refuses to feel real. You wake up in the morning expecting everything to still be the same, only to be reminded again that the person you once leaned on is no longer there. Your body moves through the day, but your heart does not follow. You do the chores, you make the coffee, you open the blinds, but something feels painfully different. The silence in the room feels heavy. The space beside you feels hollow. And even though you try to function, you feel a weight sitting on your chest that words cannot describe. At first, you think it's temporary. You tell yourself they will come back. You convince yourself that things will return to how they were. You hold on to hope, not because you feel strong, but because letting go feels impossible. You replay conversations over and over, wondering what you missed. You look for signs, for answers, for reasons, for explanations that never come. You whisper prayers in the middle of the night, asking Jesus to restore what was lost. You beg him to fix what broke. You plead for the relationship to be healed. But the silence continues. And when the silence stretches too long, the heart begins to break. It is in those darkest hours that Jesus begins his work, not in the noise, not in the light, but in the quiet spaces where hearts ache and tears fall silently. He begins to reveal things slowly, not all at once. At first, he reveals pain, not their pain, but yours. He holds up a mirror to the parts of yourself you neglected to see because you were too focused on holding the relationship together. He shows you how much of yourself you lost trying to keep someone else. He shows you how many times you accepted emotional wounds in exchange for temporary peace. He shows you how long you tolerated less than you deserved. And even though it hurts, healing always begins with truth. Sometimes Jesus lets us feel broken not because he enjoys watching us struggle, but because brokenness is the soil where transformation grows. When everything is comfortable, we do not change. We do not reevaluate. We do not seek him deeply. Comfort makes us heavy. Pain makes us move. So Jesus shakes the ground beneath our feet not to destroy us, but to push us forward into a place we never would have gone if everything stayed the same. And then comes the second stage, the wilderness, where Jesus begins removing the emotional attachments we built on faulty foundations. The wilderness is the place where we learn how to stand again, without leaning on people who could never hold our weight. It is the space where Jesus teaches us that strength is not found in who stays, but in who he is. When everything familiar disappears, that is when Jesus reveals himself most clearly. When the voices we relied on go silent, his whisper becomes louder. When human support falls away, his arms become the only support strong enough to lift us. But the wilderness is not easy. It is lonely. It is quiet. It is unfamiliar. It is where every insecurity surfaces. It is where fear tries to convince us that we will never recover. It is where memories stab like knives. It is where we feel abandoned, even though we are actually being rebuilt. It is where we learn to walk again after emotional paralysis. It is where Jesus removes the tear-soaked bandages we wrapped around ourselves and begins stitching wounds with his own hands. And this is where surrender becomes the turning point, the moment when we stop asking Jesus to bring someone back and instead ask him to help us release them. The human heart fights surrender with everything it has, because letting go feels like death. It feels like cutting off a limb. It feels like losing a history that can never be rewritten. But surrender is not the end of love, it is the beginning of healing. Surrender is not weakness, it is worship. Surrender says, Jesus, I trust you even when I don't understand you. And when that surrender finally happens, when you look up instead of backward, Jesus begins revealing the reasons behind the removal. One day, something inside you shifts. You wake up and breathe a little deeper than the day before. You make coffee and it tastes slightly more comforting. You walk past the empty space in the home and it stings a little less. You hear a song that once broke you, and now, it simply reminds you of a memory. You realize that the tears come less often. You sit alone and find peace instead of panic. Healing doesn't arrive all at once, it arrives quietly, gently, slowly, like sunlight sneaking into a dark room after a long night. Jesus heals in layers, not leaps. And in that healing, Jesus begins to show you what you could not see before. He shows you the pain that person caused, that you ignored. He shows you how much you changed to keep them happy while losing yourself in the process. He reveals motives that were never pure, intentions that were never honest, and conversations you never heard, but he did. He shows you that some people loved you when it was easy and when it was hard. Some people stayed as long as you served their needs, but disappeared when you needed them. He reveals that what you thought was loyalty was actually convenience. What you thought was support was actually control. What you believed was love was dependency. And in that revelation, you begin to feel something surprising: relief. You begin to say quietly to yourself, "I didn't deserve to be treated that way." You start to realize that losing them didn't break you, it freed you. You begin to see that staying connected to them would have kept you small, quiet, limited, and exhausted. Jesus did not remove them to punish you. He removed them because they were blocking blessings He planned for your future. And then comes another truth one we often resist. Sometimes Jesus removes people, not because they were bad, but because their season in your life was complete. Not everyone who leaves was toxic. Not everyone who walks away meant to hurt you. Sometimes good people must exit for God's will to unfold. Sometimes the journey you must take cannot include them. Sometimes Jesus separates paths to save both souls. A flower cannot grow if it stays planted in a pot that is too small. A bird cannot fly if it never leaves the nest. A life cannot evolve if it stays tied to the same chapter. Jesus removes people because destinies demand movement. And if they stayed, you would stop growing. And here's the part that many people do not realize until years later. If Jesus had not removed them, you would have never discovered the strength that was hiding inside you. You would have never learned how to stand without holding someone's hand. You would have never learned how powerful you truly are. Sometimes the greatest version of yourself is born in the aftermath of loss. And then after time, after tears, after growth, Jesus begins the rebuilding. Slowly, intentionally, tenderly. He begins placing the right people in your life, the ones who love without conditions, who value your soul, who speak life, who stay in storms, who don't disappear when things become difficult. People who respect your boundaries, people who protect your heart, people who pour into you as much as you pour into them, people who see your value, not just your usefulness. You will look back one day and realize that every removal was making room for something better. Every goodbye was building a bridge to a hello. Every closed door was protecting you from a room filled with hidden weapons. And you will look toward heaven and say, with tears of gratitude, Jesus, thank you for removing what I thought I needed so you could give me what I truly needed. Because the truth is simple yet profound. Jesus doesn't take away to leave you empty. He takes away to prepare you for overflow. He doesn't subtract to punish. He subtracts to multiply. He doesn't break you to destroy. He breaks you to rebuild stronger. What you lost is not greater than what is coming. What walked away is not greater than what Jesus will bring. What ended is not greater than the purpose waiting ahead. And even if today still hurts, even if the tears still fall, even if the wound is still open, Jesus is working. Nothing in your life is random. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was removed without purpose. Your story is still being written. Healing is a strange journey. It does not begin the day someone leaves. It begins the moment we stop reaching backward and start looking forward. It begins the moment we stop asking why they left and start asking what Jesus is trying to build now. Healing begins when the heart, still aching and trembling, finds the courage to whisper, Jesus, I trust you even though I don't understand. There comes a day, after months or even years of trying to piece together the fragments of what was lost, when something inside shifts. It doesn't happen loudly. It doesn't happen dramatically. It happens quietly, like a sunrise that slowly colors the horizon after the longest night. You wake up one morning and realize the weight you carried for so long feels lighter. The tears that once flowed every night now appear only occasionally. The memories stop hurting like open wounds and start fading into lessons. You begin to see that what felt like the end was actually the beginning of a new story. And in that new beginning, Jesus starts revealing something powerful. He never removed someone to diminish your life. He removed them to expand it. He never took someone away to break you. He took them away because he knew that keeping them would eventually break you completely. Jesus is not a God of destruction. He is a God of protection, restoration, and divine preparation. When Jesus removes someone, he is not only protecting your heart, but preparing your path. There are blessings ahead that require space in your mind, space in your spirit, space in your life. If your hands are tightly wrapped around someone who is no longer meant for your journey, your hands are too full to receive what God is trying to give. And sometimes the only way to open your hands is to allow something to be taken. But the hardest part of that process is the in-between season, the time after someone leaves, but before new joy arrives. That season feels like walking through a desert with no map, no shade, and no idea how long the journey will last. Days feel heavy, nights feel endless, and loneliness becomes a constant companion. You ask Jesus, how long will it hurt? You wonder if the sadness will ever loosen its grip. You question if life will ever feel normal again. What you cannot see is that Jesus is doing his deepest work during that season. In the silence, he strengthens you. In the loneliness, he rebuilds you. In the waiting, he prepares blessings you are not yet ready to carry. The wilderness is not punishment, it is preparation. Gold is not formed in comfort. It is formed in fire. Strong trees do not grow in gentle breezes. They grow in fierce winds. Hearts are not shaped when life is easy. They are shaped when life breaks us open. And somewhere in that wilderness season, a moment arrives, the moment Jesus begins to restore what was lost. You start to see signs of new life. You wake up and feel grateful instead of bitter. You begin laughing again, really laughing. You find joy in the small things, like a sunrise, a cup of coffee, a quiet walk, a conversation with someone who truly listens. You begin to feel peace, not the temporary peace that depended on another person, but the steady peace that comes from God alone. And then you realize something profound. You survived what you thought would destroy you. It is in that realization that a new kind of strength is born. Not the strength that pretends to be okay, but the strength that is built from every tear you cried, every night you didn't think you would make it, every prayer whispered through trembling breath. You discover a version of yourself you didn't know existed. You find courage you never knew you possessed. You begin to see your life not as broken, but as rebuilt. And then Jesus begins the next chapter, the chapter of restoration. He brings new people into your life, not replacements, but upgrades. People who encourage rather than compete. People who understand rather than judge. People who stay rather than disappear. People who bring peace rather than chaos. People who love without conditions, not just when you're useful, not just when you're giving, not just when things are easy, but when life is heavy. People who protect your heart instead of wounding it. People who stand beside you in both sunshine and storms. And the most beautiful part, you realize you would have never met those people if the wrong ones had stayed. If Jesus had not removed what was hurting you, he could not have introduced what would heal you. If he had not ended the old chapter, the new one would not have begun. You will look back one day, maybe sitting on a porch with sunlight touching your face, and you will feel something you thought would never return: gratitude. You will say softly, "Now I understand." You will realize the separation that once broke you actually saved you. You will see how every tear watered the seeds of growth. You will see how every goodbye prepared you for a better hello. You will see how every closed door led to a doorway you were always meant to walk through. And you will realize something sacred. Jesus never removed someone you truly needed. He only removed people you thought you needed. Because the people you truly need, the ones meant to walk with you through life's hardest miles, Jesus will never allow to leave. What God unites, no circumstance can separate. People who are meant to remain will stay through storms, through disagreements, through failures, through fears, through weakness, through aging, through the changing seasons of life. People who leave were never meant to stay. People who stayed were never meant to leave. And perhaps the most healing moment of all is when you stop asking, "Why did they leave?" and begin asking, "What is Jesus doing now?" Because the greatest blessing is not what you lost. The greatest blessing is who you are becoming. Jesus removed people so you could learn your worth. He removed people so you could learn to stand alone. He removed people so your heart could learn a deeper kind of love that is not built on fear, dependency, or desperation, but on strength, identity, and divine purpose. He removed people so you could learn that your life does not collapse when someone walks away. He removed people so you would learn to trust him, not them. And now, after everything You can finally say the words you once thought you would never believe. I am grateful they left. I am grateful Jesus removed them. I am grateful for the pain that taught me to grow, because now you see that peace is better than having company. Healing is better than holding onto history. Purpose is better than partnership with the wrong people. Freedom is better than attachment. And destiny is better than comfort. This is not the end of your story, it is the beginning of the most beautiful chapter of your life. Jesus is not done with you. You are not too old to be blessed. It is not too late for joy to return. It is not too late for love to find you again. It is not too late to start over. It is not too late to live with purpose. It is not too late to be happy. The best days of your life are not behind you. They are ahead of you. The greatest relationships are not lost. They are coming. The deepest peace is not gone. It is being built inside you right now. The strongest version of you is not in the past. It is rising in the present. So lift your head, wipe your tears, breathe again, walk forward, and trust Jesus. Because what he removes is nothing compared to what he will restore. What he takes is nothing compared to what he will give. And what you lost is nothing compared to what he has prepared for you. Your story is not over. God is still writing.